Hello, It Girls. We're back with a new episode, I guess a new season 2 of the It Girls Guide. I'm calling it season 2 really just because I haven't recorded it in a bit. And I'm just going to be honest. I was not in the best place. I'm sure some of you guys can relate. I have high functioning depression, and my depression is less tied to maybe like sadness, but it's anxiety, and my anxiety is really tied to like my accomplishments and whatnot. And I've just felt like a lack of inspiration and I don't know, I was just in a rough spot and I was feeling uninspired. And I did what you're not supposed to do, which is just pause. And I was really focused on everything being really perfect. When I started this podcast, I wanted, really high quality. And I got my producer and we had a whole setup and I was doing the interviews. And when I looked at the numbers, a lot of you tend to listen to my solo episodes more. So I knew I wanted to do more of those. But then I realized it really isn't about how it looks or how over the top I'm doing it. I just need to start. In business school, they tell you that. Like if you're looking to start a business, just start. And so, I'm doing a lot of traveling, really just because I have the time right now and it's something that I enjoy doing. And, who knows when I'm going to have like a man and kids and can't do this anymore. So I went to my producer and I said, how can I take this on the go? I wish I could like turn the camera. I guess I can't turn the camera around on the camera, but I have a cute little to-go setup so that I can take you guys with me. And then when I'm feeling inspired by some sort of conversation from with my friends, or I run into someone interesting on one of my trips and whatnot, I can just get right into a podcast. So this is my first time doing this solo on my own. I'm not completely solo. Kat is outside stitching something on the balcony of our hotel room, but I am coming to you live, 48 hours later from Athens. And I thought, one, I would just start by saying, if you are someone who deals with depression or deals with especially high functioning depression, where from the outside it doesn't look like you might be going through something, I wanted to just say it's okay. And it's okay to like have a rough start. It's okay to not do things perfectly. And that's what this episode is going to kind of be, is not so perfect. But I think you guys remember, if you've been listening, I released my breakup episode in, I think, around like February, March. And that breakup had happened like in like October of the previous year. And honestly, it hit me harder than I was expecting. And if any of you that are listening are divorcees, I was told that your first breakup after divorce is the roughest. It is. It definitely is. And I think that's because, after my relation with my ex-husband, I was done. And actually, him and I have a great relationship. I say this as I just told him I wouldn't talk about him in my podcast, but I only have nice things to say about him now. But that relationship, when you've gone through something and you've put everything and you've tried everything. So I knew that relationship was just done, versus my ex from last year felt like there was things left on the table, and I felt this disappointment. And as someone who likes to have control, I just felt like I had lost control. I wasn't able to control the situation. I wasn't able to control how I felt. And I don't know, I think having that in tangent with, is that a word? Whatever. In conjunction with the fact that I am kind of changing my career path, I felt like I didn't have any stability. And I was really struggling with the lack of stability, not having one thing that I could anchor myself to. And more recently, I've actually had a lot of conversations with different friends trying to work through this. But I had a conversation with one of my friends, and she was like, why don't you look at it like, okay, you could say you have this lack of stability, or you could look at it like you have all of these opportunities. And having that shift has really changed everything. Like, rather than saying, oh, I knew I was going to have this, or I was attached to this idea of this happening. Now I'm like, oh my God, so many things can happen. In any given week, I have no idea where I'm going to end up, right? A few days ago, I was in New York. I booked a flight to London. I knew I was coming to Greece. I didn't book a return flight, right? I have no idea. I have the world literally is my oyster. I can do whatever I want at any given time because I have no responsibilities. I don't have kids. I don't have a boyfriend or a man or a husband to like whatever. I mean, we all know I have a man or two, but you know what I mean. I only have to worry about myself. And there's something about that that's so freeing. It's a little bit scary at times, right? But it's also really freeing. And that shift in perspective has really changed a lot for me. And I think in general, just when you're stuck, that's really what I was. My depression was really just me feeling stuck and not knowing where to go. It's kind of the best thing to do is to change your perspective and you could look at it like you're being stuck, or you could look at it like I could go in any direction I want to go. And I don't have to pick that direction, right? I can like taste test and do these different things. And Kat's going to hear me talking about her because, like I said, she's outside on the balcony sewing something. And I was telling her how I'm a very creative person, right? I have an art degree. I've always been in something creative, and I've been feeling just like, I don't know what's next to do. And she gave me such good advice. I should ask her if I could play this voice note, but she sent me this voice note. I don't even think she knew how much I really needed to hear this, but she had said, you're so creative. Like, why don't you just start with the basics? Like, she had been struggling too. She works, despite the fact that she's an incredible artist and a creative, she works like a corporate job. She's a big boss lady, has she's a CMO, right? But she went back to the basics of just painting and painting for joy. She was painting her like flight attendants on her flight. And it was like, what is that for me? And that's what she asked me. She was like, figure out what it is. You're so creative. What the little things that you can do that spark your creative joy. I don't have to figure out what the end goal is, right? Just to start sparking some sort of inspiration. And it started as simply as like, I've been making friendship bracelets. I started drawing again, and I'm a terrible drawer. I do have an art degree, but it was in printmaking and photography. And I'm a terrible painter, but just doing something with my hands was like huge for me. And, I have all of these, I started a junk journal, which sounds so silly. And I actually made one for one of my friends and for her birthday. And I realized how like just getting that creative energy out every day, taking a piece of junk, putting it in my journal, and then drawing around it, writing a little story, like writing a poem, whatever my thoughts, just even 5 minutes of creativity. And you don't have to be an artist or super talented in one area to do this. It's just the act of sparking creativity in yourself. Then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, well, I could do this, I could do that. And again, I'm not marrying myself to an idea that I have to have some sort of end goal. I'm just in this exploration phase. And I recognize that it's uncomfortable, but I was feeling this way. And even just with this episode, right? I've had this set up for a while. I've recorded a few different intro episodes, and I wanted it to be perfect, and I wanted to have the right thing to say. And I realized it's because the tone of this podcast, It Girl's Guide, right? It was supposed to be advice. I've always been the friend that my friends go to for advice. And I was feeling inauthentic, right? That I didn't have an answer to something. And then I realized like maybe that is the advice, right? That it's okay to not have an answer. I'm still in the thick of things. And I think, especially now it's catch up with a friend and they say, what have you been up to? What are you doing? What's next? Are you dating anyone? Okay, what's going on with your job? And it's really uncomfortable for the answer to be, I don't know. And I've realized I'm not even sure what all the feelings are I'm feeling, but I feel very like icky and uncomfortable with saying, I don't know. And what does that really mean, right? And I think it's because for so long I've had this identity, right? That, and all of us do. You grow up having, you're going to school, you always have things lined up, you go to high school, then you go to college, and you leave from home, and then you get a job, and then you start dating someone, and then you move in with them, and then you get married, and those are all the things you're supposed to do, right? I did all those things, and then I turned everything on its head because I was unhappy, but then I didn't really know what my next move was. It was the first time in my life where I really didn't know what was next, right? And for a while, I can admit, like I kind of was, I'm a fan of faking it till you make it, but I was really trying really hard to figure out what the next thing was, right? So it was like, was in this relationship. I had been dating and whatnot, but I found someone who wanted to build a life with me. So I said, okay, we're going to do this. And like, I wanted to start a podcast. So like, okay, I'm going to go all in. I'm going to get all the equipment. I'm going to invest my money. I'm going to find a producer. I'm going to do all these things so that I can do it and know that at the end, I'm going to finish it. And I realized that that's really not the way to go about life, right? Because at the end of the day, it's such a cheesy saying, but life is about the journey and not just the destination. And I realized my whole life, I really have been focused on the destination. Then there's things that happen in your life that really shift that, right? For me, it was a big wake up call when I realized I was checking all these boxes and then was unhappy. And then I won't get into too much detail, but my mom had a little health scare recently, and her and I were talking about it, how she has this incredible career that she really worked hard for. She's a fucking federal judge. How cool is that? And what an accomplishment. But now she's working on a different project. I won't say what because that's her thing to share, but I'm really excited about it for her. And, when she had this health scare, we had this intense conversation that was just like, what if she had gone through her whole life working really hard to get to the point where she was like, okay, now I get to enjoy everything, and then didn't get to enjoy it because she was hindered by her health in some way. And that happened, and simultaneously when she started this new project of hers. And a big part of this is kind of connects this conversation I had with my mom and the conversation or voice note my friend Kat had sent me. My mom was talking about this new project and the joy in her voice. And look, my mom tells me about her court cases, what she's allowed to tell me, right? When she talks about her career, she's prideful, right? What I'm sensing is pride about her accomplishments. When she was telling me about this project, it was just joy, because she's not doing this to get some sort of accolade. She's not doing it to make a certain amount of money. She's just doing it because it's something she's always said she was going to do, and it's something she's always wanted to do. And there is something to say for that, right? And that doesn't take anything away from her actual career, right? Because she's worked 30, 40 years on that career and she's so accomplished, but there is something different about doing something simply for the joy of it, right? And you said, Kat had said, just start painting again, use your creativity and do it not because you're trying to turn it into something. Do it just because that's what you want to do, right? And then having that conversation with my mom and having that voice note conversation with Kat started to make me think about how a lot of my life, I have turned things that I enjoy into work. I think I've always gotten a lot of value or seen my own value based on the work that I do and what I can accomplish. And I think a lot of us feel that way. I think, our capitalist structure of society makes us feel that way. And again, being in New York, it's this hustle culture of like, just go, go, go and hustle. And if you're not in the office at 7 a.m. and leaving late and starting early and all that, like, it's like a badge of honor to be pulling all-nighters. I can't tell you how many times I've told someone about how many 18-hour days and all-nighters I've pulled. And I'm like, that's not really an accomplishment. Like working so hard that I run my body into the ground, having these skills and this creativity and then using it for something that's, for someone else's gain. And then I get it. We all have to like pay our bills and do things, right? But if we're just continually reaching for something further and further and further, what are we really doing it for, right? And so over the last 6 months, I've had this I was calling it a crisis of conscience because I still was tied to this idea that my value came from my work and what I could say that I've done with my life. But then I realized, like I said, I've turned a lot of things that I really love into work. And I won't say that I want to stop doing that entirely because I do want to love what I do, right? But I want to have some things that are just for joy. And example, I've done real estate development marketing for most of my career. I don't share a lot of that online just because, one, I sign a lot of NDAs and it's kind of boring to share. It's me behind a computer screen, right? And that is me using my creative skills for a job to make money. Great. But I think about travel. I've always loved to travel. That's one thing that my parents really instilled in me when I was younger. Because they never really got to travel. So I would travel to go to like nerd camp. It sounds so silly. Like I would spend my summers at like I would have to apply and like take all these tests and whatnot so I could get into these summer programs at Princeton and Stanford. And like that was my summer camp. But the point wasn't about being in school. I mean, well, I guess it was to my parents because I was doing like SAT prep, but that was like the way I was able to travel, and like sports was the way I was able to travel. And I so enjoyed learning about different cultures and trying new food. And I really got that from my parents. And it came from the fact that they weren't able to do that growing up. And then just before COVID, a couple of years before COVID, I started a travel business, and I realized how it really took the joy of travel away from me, because even when I started with my ex-husband, we were just dating at the time, or I think we were engaged, and it turned every trip into work. It was like we're taking notes at everything. We couldn't just sit at a meal and enjoy the meal for the sake of the meal, right? Because it was like, okay, well, this was good. So like if we do a dinner here, we'd order this, but not that. And it became something a lot different. And I've realized I've made a habit out of that, even like with fashion. Like I've always enjoyed expressing myself through clothes. I think that came from my mom. Like I have never once seen my mom without her nails done. She always has her outfit put together, and she's always, it's one thing, this is kind of a tangent, that I love about my mom is that she never instilled in me that like I was dressing for a man. And like, despite what someone might think, looking at my Instagram, I don't dress for men. I dress for women and gay men, okay? And my mom instilled that in me because it's a form of self-respect in my household to dress nice, to take care of yourself, those things. And then I started getting Instagram followers and people DMing me, and then I was pressuring myself to put together an outfit so that I could make sure the outfit was taggable so that I could partner with the brand. And now I'm like, half my stuff, sometimes my stuff is cheap, sometimes it's expensive, sometimes it's vintage, sometimes it's something that's been in my closet for literally 15 years, or it's something I stole from my mom's closet. It doesn't always have to, I was turning it into something I was supposed to monetize, and it took the joy out of it, right? And again, that's just a theme across my life, is finding something that I enjoy and then getting good at it, and then trying to monetize it in some way. And again, what my friend Kat had said was just like, do something just for like the joy of it. And I can't tell you, it's like this, it sounds so simple, but in these last, I'd say 6 weeks of me just choosing to do things simply for the joy of it. And look, I still have my Instagram, I'm still doing a podcast, I still have to pay my bills, I still take on projects and whatnot, but I have made a concerted effort to really do things simply because I enjoy doing them. And even if that means I'm going to do this and I'm not going to bring my phone, I'm not going to take a picture. I'm going to do this and I'm not going to tell anybody about it, because it's not about, the only reason I'm doing this is because it makes me happy. And again, seeing my mom, like hearing the way she talked, it was, when you see it from the outside, right? It was so clear to me the difference between when someone feels accomplished versus when someone feels joyous about what they're doing. And I was like, that's what I want. That's what I want. I want to feel joyous. And I know I can't feel that way all the time about everything that I do. And I know that I'm not going to overnight be like, oh, this is a thing that gives me joy that I'm going to like do every single day and it's going to make me feel good, right? But I'm putting more effort into exploring and figuring out what that is. Today, I'm traveling. Maybe I'm trying a new food. Maybe I'm trying a new workout routine. Maybe I'm like, I'd love to try kayaking. Actually, I almost drowned kayaking when I was shout out Mary Mac. Great summer camp. But I did almost drown there in a kayak. So maybe that won't be on my list of things to do. But there's so many things I've had that I wanted to try. And I encourage you to do this. I made a list in my phone of a bunch of things that I'd like to try that I think could potentially give me joy. And that's everything from trying one specific food I've never tried before, to traveling to some place, to things I've done before. I actually got this advice from an old ex-boyfriend. He said to look back at what you did as a child And he gave that advice about trying to find like a job or what you'd want to do at work. But I find this to be good advice for finding your joy. Think back to what you did as a kid that was just really fun for you. And that those things ended up on my list. I'm like, I had a rock collection when I was a kid. I was one of those. And I have a rock collection as an adult. And it's funny that I'm even putting this on my podcast. Maybe one day I'll do a little Instagram where I show you all the stones and stuff I've collected. Cause that's something that like, unless you've been to my house and for some reason I've had a reason to like specifically show that to you, I have a collection of like probably 100 different stones and rocks and things like that. And that is something that gives me joy. And I hadn't thought about it that way. And I'm like, you know what? That's something I'd like to invest more time in because that's something that is strictly for me. No one else needs to know about it. If I tell them about it, I'm excited about it, but I'm not monetizing it. I'm not collecting these rocks so I can hold on to them and sell them later for a higher price, whatever it is. It's just, I do it because I think they're pretty and I like learning about them and where they come from and what they might mean to people or what they might have meant to other cultures. And it's simply just like joyous for me to pull them out on a sunny day and just look at them, right? So I guess, see, I'm trying to like round about all this to be advice, but really it's just about finding your joy and being okay with not knowing what it is yet. It's okay to not know what your joy is. And it's okay to not know what your career path is. Like, I think we're all so, especially in this day and age where, you know, we have social media and everything's about instant gratification. We're all supposed to know all these things. And it's supposed to be like embarrassing or frowned upon to not know something, right? Or to be unsure. And I don't think I'm alone in feeling uncomfortable about being unsure about something. But right now I'm trying to be better about sitting in that uncertainty and being okay with it and being like, you know, if someone asks me a question, if someone says, you know, what are you doing these days? Or, you know, who are you dating? What are you doing for work? What's your next step? I'm not sure, or I'm figuring it out, period. That's an answer. That's an answer. And just because someone else can't fit you into that box or someone else is trying to like figure it out for you or thinks you should have an answer, that's really a projection, has nothing really to do with you. But I want to just like normalize not having it figured out, even at 32. I had everything figured out at one point. And then I realized I didn't like any of it. So like, what is that really doing for you to have it all figured out, right? We can all change our mind at any given time. And I think that's something beautiful about life in general, is that it doesn't have to look one way and it doesn't have to stay the same if you don't want it to. And look, I know I'm speaking from a place of privilege, right? I have the ability to change my hobbies, to travel, to do things like that. And look, I work very hard and I've worked hard to put myself in the position to do this, but I'm also aware of all the blessings I have in my life. But you can do these things and implement these things on big or small ways, right? Some of you might say, you know what, I am really unhappy. I'm going to quit my job and I have savings enough to like explore around and travel and find something else. Or some of you might be like, you know what, I like rocks too. Let me just start like collecting rocks online, right? I know that sounds so silly, but what I'm saying is there is a spectrum at which you can find your joy and change things about your life. And it's okay if you haven't figured it out yet. And it's okay to like just try something new. And good point to say, it's okay to try things that are new and not be good at them. Like, if anyone comes up to me, I've been collecting rocks for a while, I must say. I still have to read the cards. I still can't name a rock off the top of my head. And that's okay. I'm doing it not because I'm trying to be an expert. Again, I just think they're pretty and I want to collect them, whatever it is. You want to pick up sewing. You don't have to be good at it. You just want to like try, and you don't have to like be so focused on trying to get good at it. You can start crocheting and make a bunch of really ugly crochet sweaters for the rest of your life. But if you enjoy making those ugly sweaters that have 3 armholes, why the fuck not, right? And if you want to travel, if you want to, You can travel luxuriously or you can like stay in hostels. You can house swap with a friend. I do that all the time. Make friends in other places and like crash on their sofa so you can experience something new. Also, travel doesn't mean you have to go to another country. You could just go down the street and be like, it's in New York City, Upper West Side, very different life than FiDi. Why not just swap apartments with a friend for a week? I don't fucking know. Point is, try something new. I think that's the gist. I wanted to round this out with some sort of advice. And I think that's what I want to leave it with is find your joy. It's okay if you don't know what it is yet. And it's okay to explore and just figure it out, And from here on out, I have a few episodes that I already recorded. I'm going to try and record on the go, maybe like and meet some interesting people and get them on. I'm traveling with some friends, so maybe they'll get on. And I'm trying to take my own advice and be like, it's okay if not every episode is perfect. And I just want to put something out there and try. So if we can maybe like, let's do this together, right? Let's just try together, right? Also, I was trying to make this 30 minutes. I have no idea how long I've been speaking. But I guess I'll leave it with that. And this will be the first episode of season 2. And I'm going to commit to you guys that I'm going to record every week. And I'm making that commitment because it'll force me to do it because this is something that does bring me joy, despite the fact that it makes me nervous because I don't always feel like I'm good at it. But I want to be taking the advice that I'm giving. So that's that. I guess that wraps up my first episode of season 2. For my girls and my gays, maybe a few straight guys in there too. Appreciate you listening. And I'll be back next week, as promised.